Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, as you may be aware, testing has been continuing for this autumn's Expeditions update for Fallout 76, and last night Bethesda added the second of the missions that will be available at launch to the PTS. So, should we jump in and take a little look at this thing? Okay, so we've got a few things to touch on today. Before we crack on, I should just point out, of course, we are looking at PTS footage today. This is all unreleased and subject to change, and of course there are going to be a couple of spoilers here and there, so if you do want to avoid those before the update comes out in September, this will be a good opportunity to duck out. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at this. So, first up, we have a couple of bits and pieces that have changed alongside this update. So, there's some cool new additions that are likely to be coming in this update, some really cool quality of life stuff. So, top of the list is that there are a number of new interior fast travel locations that have been added. So, there's specific points like the interior of the White Spring that have already been added to the Expeditions update that you can fast travel directly to that internal space. They've added a couple of new locations that I've spotted so far with the update today, so you can now fast travel directly to the inside of the Rusty Pick, which I think may have been there already, but either way, that is there now, and a very, very helpful little thing, so you don't have to do the extra loading screen when you're heading over there. And they've also done the same thing for the core at Crater, which is quite handy as well, so you can head directly in there. Particularly useful when you've got missions that send you inside there, which some of the dailies do, including some of the new ones, which we have a look at today. So, speaking of the Rusty Pick, before we move on, of course, there is another addition that's been added to the PTS with this particular update, and that is that the Purveyor has a lot more stock available. Specifically, that relates to legendary modules and Vault Steel. When you look at the blog post, you'll actually see that it says scrip available. It means legendary modules, not scrip. So, previously there were available about 500 scrips worth of legendary modules that you could buy per day from the Purveyor and then use as part of your legendary crafting. Obviously, the issue with that was that we were gaining legendary cores, the other required component for legendary crafting, a lot faster than we were the modules. So in order to offset that, or improve things, Bethesda have significantly increased the number of modules available. I believe the number was somewhere around 5 or 10 originally. Either way, it's now bumped up to 100, or it will be when Expeditions arrives in September, so you can get a lot more modules so you can dive into your legendary crafting much more quickly. If you've got the script to cover it, that is, of course, which is definitely a win. And alongside that, they have also increased the amount of Vault Steel available, so if you're looking to make any of the armor sets that were available in the old Vault raids way back when, so that's the Stranglerheart Power Armor and the Thorn and Solar Armors, all three of which require Vault Steel, you can now pick that up much more quickly as well, as the Purveyor's stock of that has been dramatically increased too, which is very, very handy. So, looking at the specifically Expeditions-related stuff, we have a new Refuge Daily that has been added as well, ahead of diving into the new main mission. So obviously, the Refuge Dailies are the daily quests you have to complete in order to gain Ultracell Charge, so you can power the Vertibird to get to the Pit. You have to do 3 of those in order to launch an expedition. You get 1 which gives you 50% charge, and 2 more that give you 25% apiece. So 3 dailies gets you 1 expedition mission. When that actually goes live, you'll be able to do that once per day. You'll be able to join other people's missions as well, assuming you're in a group with them and somebody else is the leader. So you'll be able to launch your own, either on your own or as a group leader once per day, and join as many of other people's missions as you would like. The new addition is an extra 50% Refuge Daily. So as it was before, we had 2 25s and 1 50. Now we've got alternating 50% missions available. So this new one, you have to go and visit Skippy, who is a chap who's come down from the pit and is working with the responders at the White Spring. And he is putting together an Appalachia survival guide for people who are making their way to Appalachia from the pit, as it's a very different environment, and he wants you to go out and take some pictures of some useful things to know about. So, survival guide, perhaps not the most original concept, neither is jumping around the map and taking a few photos. There's dailies that ask you to do that already, but it involves going to 3 or 4 different locations, taking a few pictures, and then heading back. So it's roughly the same amount of time it takes to do the other 50% Refuge Daily, which is Code Blue, that sends you to a specific location that you have to explore. And once you've got those pictures, you can head back to the refuge, talk to Skippy again, and he will give you a 50% Ultracell charge. There's a very cool new quality of life feature along with this. If you've got the practical camera that you can use to take pictures, which is what you need to use in order to do this, you can find that at various locations around the map. Do check out the wiki for more information if you haven't picked it up. there is going to be a new quality of life attachment to the camera, wherein you can choose whether or not it will save the picture you take. So as it currently stands, every picture you take is saved to your photo reel like everything else, same as if you use photo mode. In this case, you now have the option to choose to save the picture or to not save it if it's just something you're taking for a mission, so it doesn't clutter up your gallery. And for those on consoles, it also means it's not taking up your limited number of photo slots, which is definitely a win, so you can advance the quest without using that extra space, which is a nice little touch. I definitely like that one. So, once you've got your Refuge dailies done, you've now got this new mission that we can dive into to take a look at, and it is pretty damn cool. So, with the one I had already, Union Dues, that takes you off to one specific location, which is the Foundry and the area surrounding it, and you've got all the missions there. This one takes you to a new location called the Trench, and it has new sort of sub-locations. The basic premise is similar to Union Dues, although there are substantial differences. It feels quite different as well. So, this new mission is called From Ashes to Fire. It's also going to be available on launch of Expedition. So, the Expeditions will launch in September with 2 Expedition missions available, and Bethesda will be adding more on down the line. So, we'll have various locations and different missions to do in different parts of the pit, which is cool. They're sort of self-contained areas, but they're a decent size. There's plenty of them to explore. This new one, the Trenches, particularly sort of involved. I don't think it's that much larger than the one for Union Dues, but it's a bit more complicated to navigate your way around, so it feels bigger. It's definitely very, very cool. The name of the Trenches should give you a fair idea of what it's like. There's some really big sort of trenches, funnily enough, that are gouged out of the earth, and you'll be exploring in those, and there's loads of little bits and pieces around in them, sort of mini sub-locations within them, as well as a whole area sort of before you get to those trenches, and another area beyond. And there's one area there that I haven't explored either that looks like it might be interesting, so I'll have to remember to dive into that at some point, but that's off to the side, so unfortunately no footage of that one. But upon arrival, we will meet a new contact who's called Danilo. He's not the happiest chap, not that anybody in the pit seems to be, but he has a new mission for us, which is a similar sort of structure to Union Dues in that there is a sort of setup mission, then there is the main section with its side objectives as well, and then a final closing couple of objectives at the end. So first up, we meet up with Danilo, and he is going to direct us off to do our first sort of leading task, which basically involves either finding some stuff or destroying some stuff, and you have to fight your way through a bunch of fanatics to do it. For the footage we've got here, I had to find some meds and some gas masks for anybody who is coming out of the Sanctuary, which is a church converted into a kind of labour camp that we'll see a bit more in a moment, and the whole area around the trenches is quite highly irradiated. Hasn't struck me as being too horrific, but then I was running around in power armour, but I imagine you'll be picking up some rads if you're not in power armour, so worth bearing in mind that one. But yeah, we get these things, we have to fight off a whole bunch of fanatics in areas around the trenches. It's a pretty cool location, there's some good spots around there, and then we make our way over to an outpost, a second point, where we meet Danilo again, and he will sort of give us the information we need for the main centre section of the mission. So, part 2 of the mission involves breaking into the Sanctuary, which is a cathedral that used to be under the control of the Union, as has now been taken over by the Fanatics and turned into a kind of prison camp. So this whole area, the trenches, the Sanctuary, or the route to the Sanctuary anyway, are all filled with Fanatics, and there's a lot more Trogs around this time, which is cool, so nice to see a bit more of them. They are in the Union Dues mission as well, but not in such high numbers, so this one sort of changes things up a little bit there, which is cool. So we meet Danilo, and he wants us to do an objective on our way to the Sanctuary, which there are a couple of them available. One of them involved taking out some very aggressive fanatics, was the first one I did. And the second one I did involved grabbing some specialised grenades that Danilo has made and using them to blow up Trog nests, which was relatively simple. It's not too hard to do. It stops you running around. You can't sprint while you're carrying these grenades because they're not so much grenades. They function the same way as grenades, but they're much larger bombs, so they slow you down. That's quite cool, and you've got plenty of Trogs to fight your way through down there as well. When you're on your way to the Sanctuary and making your way in there, there are a set of side objectives as well that we have to do, much like with Union Dues. We have to meet a character called Eva Rose, who is standing not very far from where Danilo is the second time we meet him, and who has a couple of extra objectives for us along the way. So we have to find prisoner collars from former Union members who have been captured by the Fanatics and have died whilst trying to escape, so it would seem. So they have these prisoner collars on that also have their names on them apparently. We have to find those and bring them back, much like finding these steel bars in the Union Jews mission. And there's also an individual character we have to meet who is a raider dissenter, a fanatic dissenter, who wants to get out but doesn't feel like they can. Basically, we have to track this person down, and this particular individual might be in the sanctuary, might be in the tunnels that we have to pass through on the way there, or they might be outside in the trenches, so it's worth keeping an eye out for that and checking that person for that person's location, rather, on the way in before you sort of leave, as otherwise you might find you miss them. So you can do those on the way through, head through and cross off Danello's next mission on the way to the sanctuary, and then you meet up with him at the end of the tunnels, wherein you go into the cathedral. So we're inside a sort of enclosed location rather than a more outside one, which is where we start off. Much like with the Foundry in Union Jews, except this time it's a raiderified church, and it is very raiderified, as you can probably imagine. There's lots of heads on spikes and nastiness around. There's actually a few bits in and around there that are potentially a little bit triggering for some people. There was some stuff in there that made me a little bit uncomfortable. It's the sort of behaviour such raider gangs would get up to. So it's certainly consistent and not gratuitous, but it is a bit unpleasant in places. I think maybe it's a bit too much for me, but it is in there. It's not major, it's sort of the set dressing stuff. But I thought I'd mention it as a heads up, just in case anybody could use the trigger warning, I guess. There's a couple of bits in there that are, as I say, they're kind of background stuff, they're set dressing to the environment that are just a little bit on the unpleasant side. So bear that in mind before you go in. But once we met up with Danello, we follow him around the inside of the sanctuary, where he's searching for information, and while he's rummaging through filing cabinets and the like, we have to defend him from waves of raiders, the fanatics, and there's quite a lot of them. They don't come in sort of conventional waves, they sort of come in a bit more randomly than that, and they come in from multiple directions, so if you're soloing this, which is entirely doable if you're a high level, then you kind of need to be aware that they might be coming from behind you as well, but that's not too bad. The environment inside the sanctuary is a really, really cool designed, really large church with loads of cool different areas in it and levels, and it's a bit of a labyrinth in there, and the tunnels on the way there are even more of a labyrinth, so once you find your way around, it's a little bit like, say, the Burrows in Appalachia, in that it's an underground location that's, kind of hard to find your way around at first, but eventually you figure it out. So same sort of thing going on here, but different again, and yeah, very, very cool. Got some really interesting areas and multiple little environments within it as well, which is quite cool. And the church itself's got levels up near the top, up in the rafters, as well as the lower levels of the church as well, which is really quite cool. So once Danello's been defended, we have to then go for a little boss fight, which is not too bad. In fact, the boss is probably a little on the easy side at this point. Some of the other bosses around the in-game, like in the daily ops and stuff, might be, comparatively speaking, a better fit compared to this one, because this enemy's a little bit easy to take down. But once you've done so, you then head out of the sanctuary, and that's when we get the final set of objectives, which this one can be a bit challenging if you're soloing it. You've got to find and help 3 survivors who are trying to make their way back to the Union. And they are trapped in the trenches, these sort of canyons, and being attacked by glowing trogs. And obviously the environment changes once you come back out, it becomes nighttime, it becomes more dangerous, and you have to get to these guys pretty quickly. There are 3 of them, one of them is much weaker and one of them is stronger, so ideally you want to be fighting the weak one first and working your way through and doing the strongest one last, so that you can manage the time better. The thing is, the locations are randomized. As with Union Jews, most of the objectives are a bit randomized, and which ones you get and the locations of them do change. Help keeps it fresh, which is cool. But for this last point, when you're finding these guys, that can be a little hard because you've got to run around quickly and find them without them getting killed before you get there. So once you sort of know roughly where to start looking, I think that'll get a bit easier once we've done it a few times. But at first, there is a good chance of failing it, so something to be aware of. However, once you've done that, make sure you go back to Ava and turn in the side objectives, because as with Union Jews, if you forget to do that, you won't get credit for it at the end of the expedition. And then once you've turned those in, you head back to near where we started, where the vertibird landed, meet up with Danello again, and head on out. So, all in all, it's structurally quite similar to Union Jews, which is not really surprising. The environment's pretty different. Obviously, it's still in the pit, it's still this industrial, radioactive wasteland that we would expect from the pit. And it's really, really cool. I really like the level design, I really like the style and the look of it. There's some new sort of designs of buildings and structures and stuff like that that are really cool. And the trenches themselves are pretty interesting to explore. See, they're a different sort of environment to anything we've got in Appalachia as well, so the vibe is really, really quite different, which is pretty darn cool. I think the mission style's pretty solid. It's the mixing up of the different mission types, the different objectives and stuff, definitely keeps things a bit fresher for longer. It means it'll take a little longer to learn your way around, but that's fine. I feel like the length of it's pretty good as well. The initial run through I had took a while. It took me about 40-45 minutes-ish to get through the whole thing. When I came back the next time, it came down closer to about half an hour, so it's a decent length once you sort of found your way around the location and you know where you're going. Even though you might not know exactly where the objectives are, you won't be as lost, so getting through it is a bit easier. Also, speaking of things that are a bit easier, finding those steel bars in Union dues can be a bit of a pain for the optional objective. Finding the prisoners with their collars is significantly easier. They've added new markers, which I'm guessing they've also done for the steel bars in Union dues, but I haven't checked that yet. And that makes the bodies easy to find. A marker pops up when you're nearby. Also, they're corpses, so they're just a bit easier to spot than tiny little bars, so that really does help as well. One other thing that I was going to mention about the environment as well, there are, as I said, lots of little sub-locations. So there's little sort of fanatics outposts almost, sort of little wasteland structures that have been thrown together, much like we do with camps, although perhaps a little more Fallout 4 in some vibes. But it's pretty cool. There's a number of these scattered around. They're obviously manned by fanatics, and it changes up the environment rather than just these irradiated trenches as well. So it mixes things up. The outposts that we head to meet up with Danilo after the first mission, or the first part of the mission, is pretty cool as well, sort of an underground cave behind a waterfall. It looks a little vulnerable, could do be a bit better defended, but other than that, it's quite a cool little hideaway, and it gives you a couple of different ways to get from there into the Sanctuary as well, which is also quite cool. Depending on the mission you get, it'll send you different directions. So yeah, the new location is pretty cool. I really enjoyed exploring it. I think the mission is, as I say, quite similar to Union dues in structure, although it does have quite a different vibe as well. I really enjoyed playing through it. I'm looking forward to playing Expeditions in general when it comes out in September, so definitely a hype for this. Also really pleased to have some additional Refuge dailies starting to appear. Hopefully there'll be more coming in time as well, just add a little bit of variety to that too. And the additional quality of life changes that we're getting sort of added bit by bit into the update as well, likely to come in September as well, are always welcome. There's some really good changes in there that, as I say, the good quality of life changes to make things just a little bit easier, a little bit smoother. The fast travelling directly into interiors is nice because it bypasses a whole loading screen, and that's always a win. And having more modules and more vault steel available from the purveyor just makes it that much easier to get stuck into your legendary crafting as well, and sort of helps to offset the fact that we get the legendary cores a lot faster than the modules, so definitely a win on that point as well. So very, very happy with that. I think Bethesda are doing well on that. So yeah, all in all, some cool little bits and pieces in this update to the PTS, and a lot of cool stuff altogether when it arrives in September, which I'm very much looking forward to. So, I do hope you guys found this interesting and informative and enjoyed a little look at the newest mission on the expeditions list. Obviously, both of these missions will be available in September when the update goes live. They'll both be available at the same time. They're bringing them in one at a time just to sort of space out the testing a little bit and get a little bit more in the ways of focused testing on the missions, which makes a lot of sense. So, definitely a good plan there. And as I say, I've been enjoying playing through them. So, I do hope you guys enjoyed a little look at the newest of the expeditions missions. We hope you guys are looking forward to the update as much as I am. If you did like the video, please do consider dropping subs and likes. I very, very much appreciate it. It really helps out. Down below the video, you can find social media links, merch store, and channel memberships as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel that way, all those buttons down there really, really help out and really keep me doing what I'm doing. So massive thank you for everybody who's done that already. If you're interested, please do check out. And join us for live streams if you get a chance as well. Of course, we are playing Fallout 76, having a lot of fun with that. Really been enjoying playing through the latest update, Test Your Metal, as well at the moment. And we've got a challenge run on the go for no camp and no fast travel as well, which is really changing up the vibe, and I've been enjoying that too. And we are playing Doom Eternal on the side as well, which we're going to be picking up again on Monday, and I'm looking forward to that. It's been nice to do something a little out of the usual, but Doom is always good fun, so I do hope you join us for those streams as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.